Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates of emergency expenditures. Does the Honorable Minister have an opening statement? Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. As Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, I'm pleased to be here today to discuss the Manitoba government's emergency expenditure projects and priorities for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. This is a fund we wish we did not need to use. Emergencies are always tremendously stressful for both communities and our own staff. However, we know that disasters and emergencies happen. Therefore, this expenditure is important to maintain. Before getting into details, I'm going to take a moment to recognize the often Herculean efforts the emergency management organization team undertakes to respond in a crisis. They work very long hours, coordinate with multiple levels of government, organize logistics, and provide a great sense of assurance to Manitobans. They remain calm in a storm, quite literally. We all owe the staff at EMO a huge debt of gratitude for their dedication and professionalism. Manitoba has seen firsthand the severe impacts of the human-caused climate crisis, from wildfires, floods, and extreme snowfalls. These events are clear indications that the changing climate is increasing the risk of natural disasters in our province. Anyone watching the news right now can see the devastation severe weather events have, particularly to populated areas. With this in mind, my department is fully committed to ensuring that our province's infrastructure is sustainable and resilient in the face of climate impacts. That is a key element of design and construction, maintenance and infrastructure improvements being undertaken by my department. Today, I'm here to discuss our government's emergency expenditures budget, which spans across departments and is administered by EMO, a division of Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure. This budget enables us to address emerging risks and support Manitobans in times of crisis. At the core of our provincial response to emergencies, EMO plays a critical role in promoting and coordinating provincial emergency management. This includes mitigation, preparedness, response, and disaster recovery, with the ultimate goal of building resilience, protecting lives, and minimizing damage to property and the environment. EMO supports both provincial government departments and local municipalities in programming that relates to mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery in relation to large-scale emergencies and disasters, including floods, heavy rains, severe weather events, and wildfires. The organization works closely with all emergency management partners to ensure coordinated, collaborative, and effective communications to support the timely rollout of programs and services to assist Manitobans and limit economic impacts during times of crisis. EMO is also responsible for requesting assistance from federal and other partners and issuing public alerts. The Emergency Expenditures Budget, or Appropriation 27, is a central budget for the whole of government that provides for expenditures related to forest fires, flooding, evacuations, and other natural disasters. It covers environmental emergency response expenditures and disaster financial assistance of various provincial departments. For the 2024-25 fiscal year, we have set aside the emergency expenditure budget that provides funding for urgent actions to respond to, manage, and recover from emergent events. A significant part of the emergency expenditure budget funds the Disaster Financial Assistance Program. The DFA program is established to provide relief for large-scale, uninsurable disasters that create significant financial burdens and disrupt essential services. EMO delivers the provincial DFA program in alignment with Canada's disaster financial assistance arrangements, ensuring cost sharing and reimbursement with the federal government. EMO established a disaster financial assistance program for 2023 spring flooding and continued to administer the 2020 heavy rains and 2022 spring flood disaster financial assistance program. Concurrent recovery programming is complex and technical. Both as the minister and at an officials level, our government has also advocated for improvements to the federal disaster financial assistance arrangements to advance disaster risk reduction, creating the path to build climate resilience and to better support people in Manitoba's communities. Manitoba's EMO continues to explore additional funding options for municipalities to support preemptive mitigation and climate preparedness. EMO is leading a redesign of the provincial DFA program to align with the revised DFAA and be more flexible and accessible to respond to a changing climate as well as to the needs of Manitobans. Manitoba's Emergency Management Organization conducted a public survey on Engage MB in 2024, gathering feedback that is being considered as part of the ongoing DFA program review. In addition to DFA, Manitoba Emergency Management Organization also delivers the Shellmouth Dam Compensation Program and the Red River Floodway Compensation Program, which provide financial relief in cases of artificial flooding. As we focus on future risks, our government is committed to supporting communities and identifying and addressing the risks of future disasters. We've been working closely with municipalities to build an understanding of disaster risk and identify disaster risk reduction opportunities. By investing in proactive disaster mitigation measures, we not only protect lives, but also save future recovery costs. For every dollar investigated in mitigation, we save $13 to $15 in future direct and indirect disaster recovery costs, according to data from the Canadian Climate Institute. Through the Mitigation and Preparedness Program, the Manitoba government supports local disaster risk reduction initiatives. The MPP allows municipalities to receive 100% reimbursement of eligible EMO costs back from Manitoba if they invest their deductible into approved mitigation projects or reserved funds. In 2023-24, Manitoba EMO furthered initiatives that offered municipalities the opportunity to mitigate future disasters by building local resiliency against natural disasters, extreme weather events, and the impact of climate change. Manitoba EMO worked with municipalities to identify proactive mitigation challenges to better support them in facing more frequent and intense climate change impacts and disasters, and continues to deliver mitigation and preparedness programs, which has provided over $3 million in support for municipalities since its inception. Clear communication about disaster risk and mitigation options is key to fostering resilient communities. Part of EMO's mandate is to enhance communication about disaster risk, approaches to reducing risk, and available mitigation initiatives and programs. This past year, EMO delivered 5 climate adaptation and disaster mitigation workshops in partnership with Echo West Canada and the Department of Environment and Climate Change. The organization also increased disaster risk reduction communication to municipalities and individuals, including redesigning text-based documents into user-friendly infographics, sharing mitigation funding opportunities, and creating maps of municipal disaster financial assistance damages to support local risk awareness and identification of mitigation projects. The organization also expanded the Manitoba EMO portal that provides close to real-time situational awareness with data, maps, and other resources, which enhances coordination efforts during emergencies and disasters. There are 307 local authorities and 123 emergency management partners using the portal. In the face of increasing challenges brought on by climate change, Manitoba is committed to building a future that is resilient and prepared. Through proactive disaster risk reduction, strategic investments in mitigation, and strong partnership across all levels of government, we are laying the foundation to protect our infrastructure and Manitobans. EMO continues to identify opportunities to advance disaster risk reduction, leverage greater federal funding, and enhance our capacity to respond to and recover from emergencies. We are not just reacting to disasters, we are actively preparing for the future. As we move forward, we remain committed to ensuring that communities have resources, support, and information they need to face the evolving challenges of climate change. We will continue to build a safer and more resilient Manitoba for generations to come. I would now like to acknowledge the senior leaders in our department whose expertise and commitment are essential in this work. Oh, I guess you have to invite me to do that, so I won't acknowledge them yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for those comments. Does the official opposition critic have an opening statement? The member for Leverandery.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you to the Minister for this opportunity today and her department. Emergency expenditures are one of those items within the provincial budget that we would hope to not have to use. But in a province, especially like Manitoba, that is naturally susceptible to flooding, has widespread natural areas susceptible to wildfires, and a large sprawling prairie landscape, we naturally need to be prepared for emergency measures and the expenditures that come along with them. Along with that, the mitigation of those risks is important. We've as Manitobans been working the same landscape for hundreds of years now, and some of the troubled areas have been identified, and communities have invested in the sustainability of managing those risks. So it's important for the government and us as legislators to be mindful of that, that along with mitigation and preparedness, the risk is still real, and we need to allow Manitobans, whether that be individual landowners or the municipalities that represent them, to feel confident that the government is there for support when it's needed. As I've said, obviously this is a part of the budget where we would hope that conditions are favorable, but in the event that they aren't, we need to be prepared to be reactive to some of those that are outside of our control. So I look forward to being able to ask the Minister some questions to get a better understanding of not only the department, but the plans for future management of emergency mitigation, as well as disaster assistance and emergency management.
I thank the member for those comments. At this time, we invite the minister's staff to join us at the table. Can I ask for leave for the minister to introduce staff? Agreed and so ordered.
Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you. I'm delighted to introduce my staff and to invite a few more women up to this table. I would like to start with Ryan Kloss, the Deputy Minister. Also Amber Zhang, Executive Financial Officer and Assistant Deputy Minister of Finance and Administration. Christine Stevens, Assistant Deputy Minister of Emergency Management, and Kira Shattuck, Director of Ministerial Affairs.
Thank you, Minister. According to Rule 78(16), during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner, with questions put separately on all resolutions once the official opposition critic indicates that questioning has concluded. The floor is now open for questions. Before I recognize the member, I just want to share that for the time management, when there are only 30 seconds left, I would indicate to the speaker so we can manage the time better. The member for Lavrentry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, my questions are going to start today with getting a good understanding for the committee today on the organizational structure of emergency management within the department, and the staff that are included.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you for that question. There are two branches to EMO. There's the preparedness and response, as well as the recovery and mitigation branch. And between the two branches, there are 43 FTEs.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Member Lavrandri.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Would the Minister please be able to provide the names of the ADM for emergency management and the immediate political staff within her office?
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, I'm very pleased to provide again the name of ADM Christine Stevens, who's joined us today. So Christine is the ADM of Emergency Management. And because this is kind of an all of government but managed through MTI, it's a little harder to answer the political staff question because we spoke last week during estimates for MTI. So the political staff that serve me for MTI, so like emergency management is one of the departments within the department. It just has its own separate budget, which is why we're here on it again today. But I don't have any different political staff for that department.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrandri.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I'd like to thank the Minister for clarifying that. I know some of this is going to be overlapping from estimates on MTI. So just to clarify, the 43 staff, would those be the staff under EMO? Just for clarification.
Yeah, so
Honorable Minister.
To clarify, those 43 FTEs are emergency management organization staff under two areas, preparedness and response, and recovery and mitigation.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrandri.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, the Minister stated in the past and in opening remarks that climate change is creating for more inconsistency in weather patterns, making harder to plan. Could the Minister please explain for the cut of $50 million in emergency expenditures from the previous PC government's budget?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I thank the member for that question. I know that it has come up in question period in the legislature in the past, and I think it's been well answered directly by the Premier, but I'm happy to speak to it again. It is accurate that in the previous year, the previous government budgeted $100,000, but spent $29,000 of that. We budgeted $50,000. And it's yet to be seen what we will be spending in this year. But the really important thing to understand is that response to emergencies is an all-of-government approach. We will always spend what is required. So the previous government will know that in bad flood years, when there's extreme fires, government will do what's needed to meet that need, and the money will be there to meet that need. So you can think of that as kind of a placeholder in the budget, predicting that $50 million based on having spent 29 in the previous year. Obviously, it will grow if needed.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavendry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think that many Manitobans, especially municipalities that locally represent these Manitobans during the time of emergencies, would be concerned as to where exactly the department and the government would turn to for fulfilling those financial obligations if the money isn't annually budgeted in a consistent basis. If we were to have a large-scale emergency, whether that be wildfires, drought emergencies, or large, widespread flood events, where would the money come from out of the provincial budget?
Honorable Minister.
I actually really want to thank the member opposite for that question, because it is an important opportunity to reassure Manitobans that the money will be there if it's needed. Under the previous government, $50 million was approximately what was budgeted for several years. When the pandemic hit, that was increased, and we've now returned to pre-pandemic levels in our budget line. And it's better reflective of what's likely to be spent based on historic emergency situations. This is certainly separate than if a DFA program had to be initiated because of a flood or some big emergency, certainly separate from the federal DFAA dollars. So this is about the immediate response, but it is important that Manitobans know and understand that the money will be there. This is an all-of-government approach. So again, we hold that line in the budget with an estimate of what we might need to spend in this given year. The number we estimated this year is very reflective of what was being estimated every year in the budget before the pandemic, and we're so glad that we're able to return to pre-pandemic levels.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrendry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you to the Minister for that response. Honorable Chair, my next question to the Minister would be if we could get some of that historical data, if it would be able to be provided the expenditures for 2019 and then the past 2 years.
Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, this is, I can answer the budgeted amounts from the previous number of years. This is all in the public record, so it's easy to find. But in 2017, 2018, the previous government budgeted 51.8 million. Same again in 2018, 2019, 49.5 million in 2019, 2020. And then as we were moving into the pandemic, budget year, it was 100 million budgeted each over the next 3 years. And again, we've now, 4 years, and we've now returned to that pre-pandemic budget of $50 million.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrendry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Would the Minister be able to provide with the committee today how many emergency events had occurred within the last fiscal year?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. We had 291 wildfires burning in the province this season. Those weren't, of course, all emergency situations, but there was emergency response for a number of them. And it was, we were fortunate in the sense that it was a lesser wildfire season than sometimes. And the province also responded to the Imperial pipeline situation, the failure in the pipeline that we experienced. It was obviously potential emergency, extremely critical to make sure that we could get oil and gas into the city. So we took immediate action on that. And we also, even though it might not fit in the usual response of emergency, we did take an emergency response to the situation at Birchwood Terrace when the government was informed what looked like an impending disaster. And we immediately got involved and supported the city and the tenants in response to the failures at that building's construction. And there's also been various localized flooding events. I can't speak to those in detail yet because we're still just sifting through applications and starting to connect with communities around their applications.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrendery.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would understand that it would be difficult to put a dollar value on this year's expenditures, but is it possible to give a state of emergency expenditures for the past fiscal year, and is there an update for Manitobans on this year? I think all realize that it was quite an uneventful year so far.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I think that my critic knows that it's too premature to put a number on the current fiscal year, but as I previously stated, $29 million was spent in the previous fiscal year.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Member for Lavrendery.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Would the Minister please be able to provide how much is being invested into flood mitigation with municipalities currently?
Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Okay, so looking at the overall picture in terms of mitigation preparedness for municipalities. So this is a bit of it's not a straightforward answer. I can't just give you a number, and I'll explain why. So funding to municipalities happens through MNR, not through my department. So there are mitigation funding grants and other projects that happen through Minister Bushy's department. In addition to that, I've got lots more to say, don't turn off the mic. In addition to that, there is right now about $3.7 million in our mitigation preparedness program through the DFA project, but those are multiple projects spanning over a few years. So that's not just this year, because these are long-term projects within DFA. The other important thing to know is that, you know, everything that we're doing now in government in terms of infrastructure is with a lens to increase resiliency and enhance protection. So within MTI as a whole, for any of our transportation infrastructure, we are, you know, doing that work in a way to be more resilient and to enhance those protections. And finally, there's a new DFAA program from the federal government that has, you know, there's been some changes to that program. We were involved in discussions and negotiations with the federal government throughout the fall of this year and into the winter. And one of the things we were strongly advocating for and supporting in that program was a Build Back Better option. So previously, the DFAA funding from the federal government only allowed to build back structures or roads or whatever was being built back at the level that it had previously been, which doesn't help us if old aging infrastructure has been built in such a way as to not be protective for floods. So the beauty in that is that, I mean, that has been built into the new DFAA funding from Canada, and things that we match that in our DFA funding. So we have to, for projects to get funding from the province, they have to fit the criteria of the federal government. And so now we have this opportunity to be able to support municipalities to build back better so that they are better protected going forward.
Thank you, Minister, for those comments. A general reminder to all members that when they call other members, they call them by their portfolio or constituency name. Thank you. Member for Lavendry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. That leads me to my next question, and I'd like to say that, through you, Chair, that I'm glad that the Minister is supportive of a Build Back Better strategy for DFA funding. It's obviously in my last political life in municipal government, it was a frustrating challenge that you made improvements during flood events and then needed to put them back to the way the infrastructure was that caused the damage in the first place. But a concern that many municipalities have, and they look to the province as their representative in the Disaster Financial Assistance Program. A large concern always has been and will continue to be the threshold for accessing disaster financial assistance, especially for some of the smaller municipalities with a low assessment. They're affected many times greater by these natural disasters, but the threshold of the access to the program many times creates an additional burden. Can the Minister please update us if there's been any recent changes within the last fiscal year to the threshold for the Disaster Financial Assistance Program?
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you. There have been no changes to that program since the previous government left office.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrendry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My next question, something hopefully that I can get an answer, is if the minister has any plans. I know that it's hard to predict the future. Any plans and changes to the province's portion of the disaster financial assistance program?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you for that question. So at this time, we are reviewing the DFA program in relation to the changes to the federal program. So we're working closely with municipalities, soliciting feedback, and also working closely with the federal government to as we continue to have some alignment between these programs.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrendry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, my next question is around evacuees as a result of provincial disasters, and wondering if the minister can tell the committee today how many evacuees are currently still displaced as a result of disasters within our province.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The good news is that all community members who were evacuated from this year's fire events have been repatriated.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrendry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My next question for the minister would be around flood mitigation for Lake Manitoba. We realize that this is a sitting target right now that that carries with it real risk. Could the minister answer if there's any current ongoing flood mitigation efforts being done for the risk area of Lake Manitoba, Lake St. Martin?
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I appreciate the member's interest in that question. I know he asked a similar question when he was had the opportunity to ask questions of the minister for the fuller MTI budget. So we are here today to talk about BA 27, that part of the budget. In terms of interests in the channel project, I will take the opportunity to repeat the important work that our department is doing as a whole and our government as a whole to reset the relationship with Indigenous people. The opportunity to work closely with IRTC and with numerous other First Nations that are impacted by the Channels project and the Channels area. And the flooding that took place in that area. I recently met with representative from the Métis Federation and certainly the affected municipality. So it's been a really important year for doing that work and having those one-on-one personal meetings, having the opportunity to really hear the experience of people impacted by the flooding in that area and their concerns about what the response will be in the future. So it is very, very important to the department, but I had the member had the opportunity to ask all the questions he wanted to about the budget line regarding that when we were in the MTI budget estimates. We've closed out that budget. It's been voted on and passed. And so we're here today to talk about BA 27.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrandri.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Chair, my question wasn't specific to the infrastructure development of a channel. It was specific to emergency measures and emergency expenditures around if there are, and that's the question, if there are any current flood mitigation measures for individual landowners or larger scale projects, or rehabilitation as a result of emergency measures on those lakes.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this question kind of bleeds over a little bit outside of EMO and BA 27 into the greater MTI work, which, I'm always happy to brag about the incredible work of the people in my department, but we have already passed that budget. So just some examples of some of the work in the wider department is the flood risk mapping that we're doing, and there are mitigation efforts, built into the wider project of infrastructure in the province. Within EMO and within this budget that we're reviewing, there is a mitigation and preparedness funding line that municipalities can apply for. EMO helps municipalities with planning and prioritizing, but within this budget, there's not actual construction of mitigation projects out of the emergency management organization.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavrandri.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, something that's important to communities across the province has always been emergency measures training for communities and municipalities. Could the minister please tell us how much is being spent on emergency measures training for communities and municipalities?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. That's a really great question that came from the member opposite. The department is providing quite a lot of online learning as well as flood and wildfire seminars in communities, working closely with First Nations and with municipalities. We've also, in the last year, we've reallocated 3 positions within EMO to directly support emergency coordinators across the province. And while I still have the floor, Chair, I'd like to make a correction to some information because it was the same member asking me questions. So if he will indulge me, last week, I believe, when we were in here, I was asked a question about the bid hourly rate in maintenance and provided an answer that we had spent about $5 million. That was inaccurate. That number was only until January. So the correct amount that should have been put on the record during the MTI estimates was $7.5 million for the full 23-24 year. So thank you for letting me correct that on the record.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Lavendry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank the Minister for the response on EMO training as well as the clarification on bid hourly. It was an important question to get an image on where the department is going with maintenance and how they're supporting the sustainability of safe maintenance for our Manitoba infrastructure. So nearing the end of what I have, just a quick question on wildfire risk mitigation, and if the EMO department through the minister's department is working on any wildfire risk mitigation projects. It's something that many communities, I know across my constituency, when we get into the wooded districts, are concerned about the improvements that need to be made on wildfire mitigation, and if EMO is working at solving any of those problems.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Good question about mitigation supports for municipalities. So part of the mitigation preparedness funding that I mentioned previously does go to municipalities for the purpose that that the member has mentioned in terms of fire prevention and fire smart type programs, but the primary funding and the actual fire smart programs are run through EDIT-NR. So that's actually the responsibility of the MLA for St. Vital. Our EMO does provide a coordination effort to the various departments involved in that, but the actual funding and fire smart programs do not reside with that EMO.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. That concludes the questions that I have for emergency expenditure.
I thank the member for those questions. Hearing no further questions, we will now proceed to consideration of the resolutions relevant to this department. I will now call resolution number 27.1.
Staff have to leave.
Resolve that there be granted. Okay. Resolution 27.1. Resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $50 million for emergency expenditures. Emergency expenditures for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass?
Pass.
The resolution is accordingly passed.
Here.
This completes the estimates of emergency expenditures. The next set of estimates to be considered by this section of the Committee of Supply is for Consumer Protection and Government Services. Shall we briefly recess for 5 minutes to allow the Minister and critics the opportunity to prepare for the commencement of the next set of estimates? Agreed and so ordered. Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates of the Department of Consumer Protection and Government Services. Does the Honorable Minister have an opening statement?
Yes.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon again, and thank you for the opportunity to provide opening remarks on the 2024-2025 budget for consumer protection and government services. Before I provide remarks about the budget, I want to extend a special thanks to my staff and the teams within the CPGS for all of their work during the 2024-2025 budgeting process. For the Department of CPGS, I'm fortunate to have very capable assistant deputy ministers overseeing their respective divisions. It's a very diverse portfolio that includes providing Manitobans with foundational personal identity to the information technology for all of government. Our office administrative staff have done double duty, covering the ministerial correspondence, fielding phone calls, and juggling my calendar for 2 departments. So I want to thank them for their hard work as well. I would also like a moment to thank my political team. This year, they've been working incredibly hard to cover 2 full departments and all that goes with that. As an overview of the department as a whole, CPGS has 6 divisions: procurement and supply chain, digital and technology solutions, capital project planning and delivery, asset management, and consumer protection. Our 2024-2025 budget reflects items from my mandate letter and departmental issues. Some highlights include the continued bilateral agreement with the federal government on various capital projects via the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, or ICIP. The continued modernization of IT, which includes plastic health cards for Manitoba citizens. Program and resource adjustments that strengthen key consumer protection areas, such as the Vital Statistics Branch and the Residential Tenancies Branch. Write-offs of PPE at the Manitoba Emergency Response Warehouse, capital investment in the Dauphin Centre for Justice, and increases to address inflationary pressures in the maintenance of government-owned and leased assets. The department continues collaboration with the federal government on capital projects, budgeting an additional $32.9 million, fully offset by equivalent federal revenue for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, which advances cost-shared projects between Canada, Manitoba, and municipal partners. Manitoba and Canada's bilateral agreement for ICIP was signed in 2018 and ends in 2033. The funding envelope is $232.9 million for 2024-2025. For IT modernization, there is provision for a project envelope which includes major projects such as Enterprise Resource Planning Modernization Program, Courts Modernization, Plastic Manitoba Health Cards, and the Online Death Registry. These projects will move IT modernization forward as they replace legacy systems that are outdated and difficult to maintain. The Enterprise Resource Planning Modernization Program is one of the largest process and technology transformations in Manitoba history, impacting all departments within core government, as well as the broader public sector, including crowns, special operating agencies, and other reporting entities. This SAP ERP software will modernize, digitize, and standardize operations and processes across government, enabling streamlined operations and financial reporting, greater collaboration and communication, and bring increased buying power and value for money through economies of scale and operational efficiency. The Plastic Manitoba Health Cards project will deliver an enhanced physical card that can be digitally read by healthcare providers, allowing them to streamline patient intake processes, reducing time and errors. The card will also be human readable for situations where healthcare provider is not ready or able to utilize the machine readable format, both inside and outside of Manitoba. This will be a collaborative project with Manitoba Health. This is a collaborative project. Another key project within the IT modernization is the Online Death Registry for Vital Statistics. The department is focused on reducing backlogs, improving the throughput and processing times throughout Vital Stats, and the online death registration system progresses this important area, which was also identified in my mandate letter. The budget includes provisions to review and confirm what the appropriate funding model will be for the Manitoba Emergency Response Warehouse, or MER. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed the importance of having PPE in adequate supply, as they can quickly become scarce, leading to health and safety issues for workers and Manitobans. The MER has been set up to be a perpetual emergency-related warehouse that will distribute and rotate these emergency products and supplies through normal channels during non-emergency years. In the event of future emergency events, Government of Manitoba requires a 90-day supply of critical items on hand. This is a safety measure for Manitobans should a pandemic-level event occur in the future. In our budget is a non-cash write-off of pandemic supplies that were donated to the province by the federal government free of charge during the pandemic, but have now expired. These write-offs are in accordance with proper accounting rules that apply to the public sector. Consumer Protection and Government Services works closely with the Department of Justice to support courts and corrections infrastructure requirements. The budget has allocated funds in the 2024-2025 fiscal year for a new Center for Justice, which includes consultation, functional programming, and concept design to move this project forward. Additionally, the budget has provision for management of price pressures related to facility costs, leasing costs, and maintenance costs, which continue to rise with inflation. The department also plans to internally reallocate FTEs that will improve capacity to deliver programs and functions more effectively. One key area for these FTEs is the VSB, Vital Statistics Branch. These resources are required to prevent backlogs from returning to levels seen under the previous government, but also to ensure that Vital Statistics is able to implement the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's calls to action 17 and 71. My department is excited and looks forward to addressing these needs from within for 2024-2025. And later I'll be able to invite my staff to the table, but I'm just going to now acknowledge the senior leaders in our department whose expertise and commitment are essential in this work. With us today will be Deputy Minister Joseph Denford, Executive Financial Officer Jason Perez, Assistant Deputy Minister of Consumer Protection Catherine Durkin-Chud, and Acting Assistant Deputy Minister of Capital Project Planning and Delivering Prachi Day, and of course, Kira Shattuck, my Director of Ministerial Affairs, will also join us. Thank you.
I thank the Minister for those comments. Does the critic from official opposition have an opening statement? MLA for Borderline.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few quick words in the interest of time. As I wanted to thank the Minister for her opening comments. It is an important portfolio within government, consumer protection, government services, and as the Minister indicated, covers a number of areas that impact the daily lives of Manitobans, and so I look forward to asking some questions on a number of the items that the Minister talked about in her opening comments, and I thank as well her staff, department staff, for joining us today. So again, in the interest of time, I'll be brief, but I appreciate the opportunity to put a couple of questions forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. Under Manitoba practice, debate on the Minister's salary is the last item considered for our department in the Committee of Supply. Accordingly, we shall now defer consideration of line item 8.1 bracket A contained in Resolution 8.1. At this time, we invite the Minister's staff to join us at the table, and we ask that the Minister introduce the staff in attendance. Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you. I introduced the staff in attendance because the last round it's sort of got missed. So these are the staff that I previously mentioned, and I'm grateful to have them here at the front with me.
Thank you, Minister. According to our Rule 78, bracket 16, during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner, with questions put separately on all resolutions once the official opposition critic indicates that questioning has concluded. The floor is now open for questions. Member for Borderland.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering if the minister can confirm that the organizational chart in the supplemental estimates is complete and up to date.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. And yeah, there have been a couple of changes to the organizational structure as published in the supplement that the member has asked about. So the ADM for asset management recently retired, and so we're in a hiring process, and also the Chief Information Officer under Digital and Technology Solutions is no longer with the department, so we are in a hiring process. And there's an additional change under Entrepreneurship Manitoba, which is an SOA of this department. We have someone listed as the Acting Chief Operating Officer, but that's no longer an acting position, that's a permanent position.
Thank you, Minister. MLA for Borderland.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering if the minister could, what political staff work either within the office or outside, and what their roles would be.
Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister.
Thank you for that question. It gives me an opportunity to explain the unique situation in this department. If the member has taken a look at the budget, he will think I have no political staff. I don't, though. I have 3 very efficient and fabulous political staff. So I have a Director of Ministerial Affairs, I have a executive assistant and a special assistant. However, because I am the minister of 2 departments, when those OICs were completed for hiring, everybody was hired under the MTI budget. So they equally support my work in both departments, but they are not listed as political staff the way it looks.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Borderland.
I thank the minister for that. Can the minister perhaps talk a little bit about how casework is handled within the department? Does it go to a single political staff person? Is it, is it handled by civil servants exclusively? How does casework, how is that dealt with and we're referred through the department?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. So casework in my department is handled probably very much like I assume every minister's department. It's really a team effort. Casework really varies. Sometimes it's quite technical. It requires subject matter expertise. Certainly any casework of that nature is sent through to, through to the deputy, the ADMs, and through to the department to have the correct person providing the information. Sometimes casework is really political in nature, in which case I would lean on my political staff for responding to those emails or letters or other inquiries, but we work together.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Borderland.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank the minister for that. Is there an internal sort of target timeline for responding to casework in ideal time frame?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this is a really reasonable question from the member opposite. I think it's very important that we're responding to casework in a timely manner. I won't pretend there weren't challenges that, coming into two departments with substantial vacancies, 30% vacancy rates across departments, really challenges our ability to respond to Manitobans in a timely manner. But we've worked really hard on this over the last year to be as efficient and as timely as possible. Sometimes there's a triaging process, especially in CPGS. A lot of the types of inquiries that we get can be extremely confidential. They can be extremely sensitive. Sometimes we need to consult with our partners in justice in order to provide the correct information to folks. So just because of the nature of the department, sometimes it can take longer to get to some of to resolve things for folks. But we do triage for the most essential, to respond quickly and efficiently, especially because when we're talking about things like, people's identity documents, we don't want to delay. So, that's an ongoing project to get our responses out to people as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Borderland.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I thank the minister for that. And I will say as well, this is a partisan environment, but we all come from constituencies, areas that we represent across the province, where constituents encounter problems when they're engaging with government or in their life, and some of these issues involve government, and so they will approach MLAs, and so that's where that process of engaging with ministries and ministers comes into play. And so I just do want to thank the minister and her department and her staff as well for, I know I've had a number of issues in my constituency as well, and it's always appreciated when we do get a response. Again, this is a partisan environment, but I think that very fundamental level of work, there's an expectation, I think, on the part of our constituents that government still functions and provides the services that they depend on, and that politicians be able to work together. And so that's something that I've always considered to be very important, both since I've been elected in 2019. So I appreciate that the minister and her staff continue to engage, and I hope that continues going forward, that responsiveness to casework. I think that's very important and something that our constituents depend on. So just in terms of, the minister talked about Manitoba health cards, and so I think that is a major upgrade. I wonder if the minister can perhaps talk about where progress is at on that, what the timelines are, expected costs associated with that, and whether it is being done in-house. I don't imagine that it is, so it's being contracted out. Who would be doing that?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll try to give a little bit of information here, but the health card project is not yet complete. It is a project very much in development as we speak. It's also a partnership. While the project is being overseen by CPGS, we're also working really closely with health because obviously this, is reflecting the interests of the health department, and we require our health partners in terms of creating a system for cards to be able to be read in healthcare facilities and that type of thing. So I can't comment on the dollar amount because it is a project still under development. I can say that it is the cost was included in this year's fiscal budget, and with the intention of completion of that project within this year's budget. And I had another really important point. You had asked about who was doing the work. So a big part of the work is in-house, but it is a mixture of internal and external expertise on this project.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Borderland.
Thank you. The supplemental estimates on page 28 makes reference to a number of initiatives, key initiatives that the CPGS is undertaking in its digital and technology solutions operations, including an enterprise resource planning modernization program. I'm wondering if we could get an update on that initiative and what is the cost to complete that upgrade.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm really glad that the members asked about the enterprise resource planning. This is the largest IT project in the history of court government, so it is very exciting. In October, we launched the learning management system, and the focus of for this year, 24-25, is to deliver also the procurement. There's a long name, Ariba contract management and spend analysis, but we can just call it procurement. That module in November, and the human resources learning management system and financial consolidation we're doing work to prepare for those launches in the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Borderland.
Yes. Thank you, Chair, and I thank the Minister. I know we are coming short on time here, and so just keeping one finger on page 48, but I think I might jump ahead to the residential tenancies branch. I'm just wondering if the Minister could outline how long it usually takes for the residential tenancies branch to adjudicate complaints from tenants regarding rent increases or above guideline rent increases or other landlord tenancy issues related to the Residential Tenancies Board.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So to the member's question about the turnaround time in RTB, the benchmark that we endeavor to hit for all of that is 90 days. I will just use this opportunity to comment that certainly there has been an increase in demand. Just for example, the number of above guideline rent increase applications continues to increase. In 2021, it was 312. Then there were 353 applications in 2022, and then 472 applications in 2023. So we do still endeavor to hit that 90-day benchmark, and I think that our team does a really good job of doing that, because that is the intention and goal of their work. But I can see where there are some, growing pressures on the department with those increasing numbers.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Borderland.
Thank you, Thank you, Chair. And this will be my last question. So I'll just kind of bundle, again, on page 48, there's a reference to, I did ask about the Enterprise Resource Planning Modernization Program, but there's also a Vital Statistics Modernization Initiative for information technology. There's a reference to a courts modernization for information technology, and then a cybersecurity program initiative that is spelled out on page 48. I'm just wondering if perhaps briefly the minister could share a little bit more information on these projects, whether they're progressing along the time frame that has been prescribed, or whether there are any issues, costs with these associated with these programs, whether the minister expects these initiatives to be completed on time and on budget.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll try to, I know we got to get through this so we can get to the end, but I'll speak to each of these in turn. Vital statistics modernization is a big priority for government. Certainly, there was a focus on vital statistics in my mandate letter. We have been working very hard to clear the backlog that existed for many months or years under the previous government, but also the modernization piece. So we've started, I was very excited to announce the digital death registry upgrade, like a modernization we've been able to do in concert with the federal government. And as I mentioned in my speaking notes, it allows us to fulfill two of the TRC's calls to action. In terms of the courts modernization, this is a multi-year project. We anticipate to be complete probably around 27, 28. It has to be coordinated with the courts to minimize disruption to the courts, so that's why it's going to take a few years. And cybersecurity is not a specific project, it's an ongoing program of our IT department. I was recently at the federal, provincial, territorial ministers meeting in regard to cybersecurity, and we are working extremely collaboratively across provincial governments and the federal government as kind of more of a national lens, and then learning from each other. Some of the provinces are substantially further ahead than Manitoba, so we're really learning within the department and at the minister level as well about how to do this as well as we can to protect our government resources.
Thank you, Minister. Hearing no further questions, we will now proceed to consideration of the resolutions relevant to this department. I will now call Resolution 8.2. Resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $364,620,000 for consumer protection and government services, capital programs for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass?
Pass.
The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 8.3. Resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $77,887,000 for consumer protection and government services, digital and technology solutions for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass?
Pass.
The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 8.4. Resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $10,568,000 for consumer protection and government services, procurement and supply chain for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 8.5. Resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $22,419,000 for consumer protection and government services, public safety, communication services for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass?
Pass.
The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 8.6. Resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $14,827,000 for consumer protection and government services, consumer protection for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 8.7. Resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $48,114,000 for consumer protection and government services, capital assets for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass?
Pass.
The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 8.8. Resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $48,501,000 for consumer protection and government services, other reporting entities, capital investment for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass?
Pass.
The resolution is accordingly passed. The last item to be considered for the estimates for this department is item 8.1 bracket A, the minister's salary contained in resolution 8.1. At this point, we request that minister's staff leave the table for the consideration of this last item. Thank you. The floor is open for questions.
Okay, so then,
So there are no motions forthcoming. Resolution 8.1, resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $2,521,000 for consumer protection and government services, financial and strategic management for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed.
Oh, no, it's 5 o'clock.
This completes the estimates of the Department of Consumer Protection and Government Services. The hour being 5 o'clock.
Committee rise.
What is the will of the?
Committee rise.
Okay, the hour being 5 o'clock, committee rise.
Oh, sorry, thank you. There.